This is Spoiler.
Welcome to Spoilers. We haven't really been doing any spoilers for these Mando episodes, but general spoiler for these next two episodes is Baby Yoda is in peril. Let's go around the room. We got kind of a skeleton crew, but we'll start Westus to Eastus, and that means it's you, Korey. You start off. Just say where you're recording from and what you thought of these last two episodes of Mando.
Oh, my name's Korey. I'm recording out of Simi Valley, California, also known as Kylo Ren Memes or Korey the Intern. Well, I really like these last two episodes. I really like this series as a whole, and we're going to get into why, as I'm sure, probably at the end of this episode, but I enjoyed them thoroughly, but I'm very sad to see it go. Disney Plus, I don't know if I'm going to be keeping it. Mandalorian is kind of all I had going for me at this point.
Yeah, they've already announced season 2, but you can always cancel and resubscribe when Mando starts back up. I don't really see too much on Disney Plus to keep me subscribed either.
Is this to believe that Korey doesn't have The Last Jedi on repeat at all times?
Oh, God.
I have purchased The Last Jedi. I got it the day it came out. So
you don't need Disney Plus for that.
I'm not even kidding.
Up next is Pap.
Yep, I think I'm next. This is Pappy, recording out of Louisville, Colorado. And I love these last two episodes. I thought they were so much better than Rise of the Skywalker, which we just did a pod on. And so I'll let you guys listen to that to hear my full opinions. But big fan of The Mandalorian, and like with Korey, I'm very sad to see it go. We did 2 full seasons of TV this year, Mikey, on Spoilers.
What was the other show we did?
Game of Thrones, your favorite.
Oh, yeah. I already forgot about it. That's how much I love Game of Thrones. Josh, you're next.
This is Josh from Goshen. Of course, I love these last 2 episodes. It's really, in effect, one large episode that they released a week apart. But
yeah,
I'll say, just since everyone was so positive, there's a few of the mechanics in the plot, especially in the 8th episode, that I'm confused about, so maybe you all can straighten me out. But I can't get too negative about this because it's just really strong television, and due to some recent listener feedback, I'm really on my toes about being a toxic fan. So, you know what I mean, Pap?
You gotta be careful what you say about Star Wars these days. You can have 7 yeses and 2 nos, but yet somehow the no's are the toxic part of the fandom.
One thing I learned about podcasting, always talk shit about the fans. They love that.
Yeah. Come at me, bro.
That's how you get the most engagement.
Yeah.
It's a classic way to rile up a fan base. My name is Mikey. I'm the host tonight. Like Josh said, this last 2 episodes are kind of parallel to the first 2 episodes in that it's just one shorter story arc between these 2 episodes, but I liked it as well. I'm excited that they've already announced a season 2 and they're getting ready to go into pre-production on that. So it's good for Disney Plus. I'm excited to see what they have in store, and I'm ready to start talking about these episodes. So let's just start off with it. Mando, at the beginning of Chapter 7, it's called The Reckoning. He gets a message from Grief Karga, who is on Navarro, I believe, and it's been overrun by ex-Imperial troops led by someone called the Client, which was that was Werner Herzog, I believe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of proposes that Mando brings a child as bait in order to kill the Client and free the town from Imperial rule. Pap, what is kind of the setup to this plan, and what is everybody trying to get out of this situation?
Yeah, so it's kind of an assembling the crew episode, right? Like I think we talked about it on previous episodes, how each story kind of felt independent, but now we get to go back and pick up all of the cool characters that we saw along the way, like Cooley. What's his name? How do you say his name?
Kuiil.
Kuiil. The guy from the first episode. I Have Spoken. He's back, and he's just kind of in it for for this. He's just kind of a good guy, right? He's just kind of in it for the sake of the baby. Is that his deal?
Yeah, and we don't see this. This happens off screen probably a few episodes back, but he ends up fixing IG-11 and reprogramming it after Mando blew his brains out in the first episode. He ends up finding IG-11 and rebuilding him, and he turns him into, he calls him a nurse droid, but we get like a brief montage of IG-11 kind of relearning how to be a helper robot. Kylo, do you remember any of that montage?
Yeah, I mean, he's like reprogramming him and reteaching him like some of like, I don't know, some of the basics. He's like showing him carrying a box from one place to another. And he says through like a lot of time and patience, he got him to, I don't know, to his new programming, which is basically he won't be a bounty hunter droid anymore, which IG units are all supposed to be. He's just going to like be there to serve him in various ways, which eventually becomes being a nurse for the child, or Baby Yoda, as we like to call him. And he says one important thing. He says he won't kill anyone, but he'll protect, or something like that. So that's kind of set up there that he has the potential to be a protector. He won't, be out shooting anyone or doing bounties, but yeah, he'll protect them.
Mm-hmm. The plan with Greef Karga is to pretty much bring the baby back to town to hand over to Werner Herzog's character, the client. And hopefully that would be enough to get the Imperial troops to leave this planet alone. But Mando is not down to let the baby go. Josh, what kind of happens when they get into town? And what is Kuil's plan with these dewbacks? What are they trying to do when they get into town?
When Quill's trying to leave town with the child, or...
Yeah, I mean, they kind of walk across like a lava field on these dewbacks. Their plan is to like walk up to the town, and I don't even really understand what the plan is exactly.
So Greef Karga tells the Mando in his transmission that, like, look, this guy who they just call the client, he's kind of like taken over the whole area after the ruckus that the Mandalorian caused, and he came in there and he killed all his guys, so he has like a ton more guys, and he, I guess, is like impacting the Bounty Hunters Guild. They're not able to do what they normally do. So Greef Karga says, look, I want you to come back, take this fucker out, let's get rid of him. If we kill him, all the stormtroopers and all his muscle will basically leave because they won't be getting paid anymore. And then I'll clear your name with the Bounty Hunters Guild. We won't be sending guys after you anymore. We'll all be squared away.
Several decades of movie watching for me, every clue would point to Carl Weathers just talking completely out of his ass here. Like, there's no part of me that believed what he was saying at this point.
I mean, and he was full of shit, right? He planned to just kill him and take the child.
Mm-hmm. Well, he has a couple of friends with him that their plan was to kill Mandalorian. He's got like two hitmen walking around with him, and they kind of like walk behind Mando and Gina Carano's character like the whole time. We're ready to shoot them in the back and steal Baby Yoda, but Karga ends up killing those two guys, and eventually he joins forces with Mando. I don't know if he planned that the whole time or if he had a change of heart, like in between.
An uneasy truce.
He seems to be just flying by the seat of his ass because he's constantly underestimating the number of stormtroopers. He's like, yeah, there's just like 2 or 3. And there's like a whole village of stormtroopers.
Yeah. Well, he says 4, which became a meme, actually, for a few days anyway. There's only going to be 4 meme. But I think the reason that he switches sides, it's not super clear, like you said, but they do get attacked by some wild flying beasts at some point, and he gets mortally wounded, or at least hurt pretty bad. And the thing is that Baby Yoda comes over to him, and he uses that sweet force healing on him. And I think that's kind of what, like, changes his mind. I think, I don't know for sure, but...
Should we dive into that a little bit, too? Because that's a new force power that ties in with the Rise of the Skywalker. And is there a world where Baby Yoda and Rey at some point teamed up to learn a little bit of force healing?
Yeah, they're gonna heal the galaxy, man.
Well, I mean, like, is there is there a coaching tree that they're both... How did they learn those powers is basically my point. Is there like a similar source that they both got it from, or is this just a new Force thing that's more common?
Josh, that would require a plot structure and planning throughout this entire franchise, and that's obviously not happened. There's no reason for them to have learned any of these skills from anybody.
I disagree, because the Mando has shown foresight, and I think the fact that they released this Force healing episode the day before Rise of Skywalker came out is actually like a pretty good sign.
You think Baby Yoda's gonna be in movies later?
Well, yeah, but...
Yeah, of course. But we talked about on Rise of Skywalker too. Like I think in other parts of this episode, you see Jawas on other planets. When in that movie, it was specifically used to establish that we're on Tatooine. So I think that they may have gotten like one thing right potentially with the Force healing, Josh. But I don't give them much credit beyond that.
I'll say this about the Jawas. I did a little bit of looking into on that. Again, I try not to go too heavy into this side of things, but those Jawas have a genetic difference, I guess, if you want to call it that. Their eyes are different. You know how the eyes light up for Jawas because they're like shrouded in their hoods and you can't see their faces? They have different colored eyes. I think they were red in the show and yellow in the movie. So slightly different species of Jawas, maybe. I don't know.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, I never would have known that. I guess I should have read the book like our fans suggested.
The extended trilogy.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
But yeah, like we said, Grief Karga ends up getting healed by Baby Yoda because he's attacked by like some dragon-type creature or something in the middle of the night, and Baby Yoda ends up healing him. And he really kind of just has a change of heart and sees that this little creature is actually pretty important, and giving him over to the Empire would be a big mistake. And he realizes that it's actually a pretty powerful creature, so he switches sides pretty quickly and pretty easily. He makes no second guesses about shooting his associates, and then kind of working together with Mando to get rid of the client and kind of shoo away the Imperial forces from this planet.
Now, Mikey, you mentioned he switched sides, and we've seen Creel kind of switch sides to Baby Yoda. Besides him being cute, which there's tons of cute creatures in the universe, Korey, do you think it's possible Yoda's doing a little bit of force manipulation with the people around him, just getting them to love him a little bit more than maybe is natural?
I didn't get any vibes of that. I mean, you know, you got a innocent baby that has no family, no one to take care of him. You know, if you have any kind of heart in you, I think your instincts kick in and you want to protect it, as opposed to hand it over to fucking Werner Herzog, who's going to do God knows what with it.
And I think, didn't we see that, Josh, on like a later, like, I think we talked about this on an earlier episode where part of the reason Mando is so sympathetic to Baby Yoda is because like he was a baby who was saved. I feel like I brought that up and you poo-pooed it at the time.
I was once a Baby Yoda myself.
I think that works for Mando, but Grief Karga is more than a bounty hunter. He's like the leader of bounty hunters, and surely, you know, he's built a reputation on getting the job done regardless of how cute the target is.
I'm willing to bet he's more accustomed to dealing with capturing grown men and women as opposed to, you know, 50-year-old children.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we get to the bar that all the bounty hunters hang out, I believe. This is where they plan to do the swap of the child, and it ends up being a setup, I believe. But not before Mando offloads the baby to Kuil. Kuil tries to take the baby back to Mando's ship before stormtroopers try to kill him and take the baby. But he ends up not getting to the ship in time. And Josh, can you kind of... this is kind of like the end of the episode of Chapter 7. What kind of happens to Kuil, and then what happens to Baby Yoda?
You know, we don't know exactly what happens to Quill, but we find him laying dead on the ground, and we assume that the Jason Sudeikis, how do you say his name, Pat?
Sudeikis?
Yeah, Jason Sudeikis, stormtrooper who punches Yoda later. I mean, I guess they ran him down and shot him down. You know, that's a very Western trope, and they caught up to his slower horse, basically. And the other thing I'll say about this, then pass it back to you, Mikey, is that I think this is the first episode that didn't wrap up completely in the whole season, which seeing this one have the continuation really made me appreciate that the rest of the season was like so episodic, you know?
Yeah, I can't remember exactly how it ends, but I'm pretty sure it's just like we see Kuil laying on the ground, and that's kind of the end of the episode.
I think they even show the stormtrooper on a speeder bike like scoop Baby Yoda up really quick.
Mm-hmm.
And Mando and his friends out there at Werner Herzog's place, they get pinned down. That is like how the episode like ends proper. Like they're pinned down by a ton of stormtroopers, and not Grief Karga, but the client gets killed by Moff Gideon.
Yeah, Moff Gideon shows up in a TIE fighter. We don't really know what his intentions are yet, but he looks like a pretty important... I don't know if he's a Sith, but he looks like he could be a pretty important guy in the Imperial troops, and he's played by the guy who played Gustav Fring on Breaking Bad. I don't know his real name, but that's the same guy, and he kind of just shows up and kind of looks imposing as he's getting out of his spaceship there. And that's kind of pretty much the end of the episode before we move on to Chapter 8. Is there anything else you guys want to say about the end of that episode?
Thought the TIE fighter landing that Gideon comes in looked awesome.
It is cool.
It looks really cool.
The way it maneuvers around. And I couldn't help, I don't want to get too highfalutin with this, but I couldn't help seeing some similarities between the end of this episode and the standoff and the Lincoln County War that happened in New Mexico around 1877.
Yes.
It's portrayed famously in the movie Young Guns. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but
I've heard of it, yeah.
I haven't heard of that film.
To be holed up in a house like that with the threatening people surrounding you and wanting to burn you out.
And
It's 100 against 5.
a giant repeater gun that they set up too.
They got this
Pretty much the exact same situation.
I just need Emilio Estevez in a briefcase, and it's basically the same thing.
You know, one thing that we didn't talk about that occurs around the time they are traveling back to Navarro, Baby Yoda force chokes Cara Dune.
Oh, yeah.
Baby
So
Yoda's
that's
a little
pretty cool.
shit
Yeah.
in these episodes. He's like fucking with the ship, making it go everywhere, and then he force chokes her. He's out of control.
Well, for some context, Mando is arm wrestling Cara, and I guess he's just kind of protective of Mando now at this point because he's been taking care of him so long, so he's choking out Cara while they're having this friendly competition, and this is kind of almost like the second time Mando has ever seen Baby Yoda's powers at work, and he kind of flips out on him and tells him, "Hey, knock it off! You're killing my friend here."
You don't force choke my friends.
Yeah.
I think that's
Do you
cool,
guys have
though.
any? Oh, go ahead.
Isn't
Josh.
that just like any young Padawan's journey from light side to dark side? Like, Yoda needs to be trained, and he needs to be trained at a young age so he doesn't start shooting force lightning out of his fingertips. You know what I mean?
Otherwise, some
housebroken.
younglings end up dead.
Poor guy.
Agreed.
Do you guys have like any theories on who Moff Gideon is, or what his kind of intentions are, or is he just a new boss guy that shows up who's like the client's boss, and he's kind of had enough of his stuff, so he ends up killing him, and we got a new antagonist now, or do you think there's something else at play with him?
Well, I thought it was very creative of the Mandalorian to end in a lightsaber igniting, and it had been almost a week since I saw a Star Wars property that ended with a lightsaber igniting.
Not just any lightsaber.
It's a dark saber. Is it
It's
a lightsaber?
the dark saber.
Pappy.
So is he a Sith?
So, from what I've read briefly, is that sword was in possession of, like, the head honcho of Mandalorians, like, within a decade of this all taking place. So, due to, like, Mandalorians' past and their, like, pecking order, it's kind of like if it was a fair fight for that dark saber or whatever the heck they call it, and Moff Gideon won, is he kind of like Mandalorian's boss at this point? Din, or should we call him Din now?
I don't know. I don't like that. Din?
Yeah, we should mention that, I don't know if it's in this episode or the next episode, Chapter 8, but we do find out that Moff Gideon used to be the boss of the Mandalorians or something like that. He used to be Mando's boss for sure. And,
or he took over their planet. Korey, can you help us out here?
Yeah. So they talk about something called the Great Purge, and that's where the Imperials came to the Mandalorian. I don't know if it's their planet or where they were just living after their planet had already been lost, but basically most of the Mandalorians were killed by the Imperials during the Great Purge. One of the reasons was for their resources, and another reason I think was just because they were kind of a threat, because they are, a force to be reckoned with when they're together. So he was one of the guys that was in charge of leading the assault, or at least a general or a higher up during the Great Purge. So he is known to the Mandalorians, and it's assumed that he got the Darksaber during the Great Purge. I don't know if you guys want to get into it now, but I mean, the Darksaber is something that is from... it's mostly from Rebels, the animated series. It's a little bit mentioned in Clone Wars as well. Essentially, it's a lightsaber that was owned by the first Mandalorian Jedi. And then it kind of had like a history of going back and forth between the Mandalorians and the Jedi after that. Even Darth Maul had it for a little while. Eventually, it ended up back in the Mandalorians' hands, and then the Great Purge happened, and it was presumed to be lost during the Great Purge. Now, this guy who led the assault on the Great, that caused it, he has it now, so he probably got it from that.
Does it have an advantage over a typical lightsaber?
I don't think so in any like physical way. It is way cooler, yes.
Intimidating.
But Din's not in touch with the Force in any way, is he?
Not that they've told us.
Okay.
So there was a moment that it might have been suggested when he was training the Blurg. One of you guys talked about that. It might have been Josh, where he went up to it and he kind of did a little bit of an Anakin move where he calmed it down when he was, learning how to ride it, I think in episode 2.
Calm down, boy.
That could just be him, learning to ride a horse or whatever. We don't know. I doubt they're going to go that route. It's possible, though.
At some point, we better learn his exact midichlorian count.
Please.
That's the only way the fans will be satisfied.
If it's not 20,000, I'm never watching this show again.
Yeah, that's pretty much chapter 7 there.
And a little bit of 8.
We'll start chapter... Yeah, a little bit of 8. It gets kind of blurry. But the most important thing that we learn with Moff Gideon is that he knows Mando's real name. Right? We kind of learn that fact. Mm-hmm. And then we also get context into Mando's flashbacks of him as a kid and the Purge happening. That's kind of where we understand that the Mandalorian creed is a creed and it's not a race as well, because there's no such thing as a Mandalorian race. They're just kind of these runaways and kind of disadvantaged people that are joining together to create the Mandalorians. Right, Korey? That's kind of like the idea of... Yeah. The Mandalorian creed?
I'd say that's right. The way they set it up in this show is that they seem to be consistent of foundlings, so like orphan children. They take them in, they train them to be strong so they don't, die in this harsh outer rim world that they live in. So yeah, I think that's pretty good.
I think the action sequence that they show in those flashbacks is really cool, and the droids kind of coming in and smashing everything up. But I don't think we really learned anything from that new in this episode. I feel like that the first flashback they show in the first episode kind of contained everything we needed to know about that.
I felt exactly the same way. I thought that they were going to put a twist on that when they showed the full version of it. Because you're right, we got all the clues we needed from just the little clips of it when his parents put him away. And what I thought was going to happen, I thought they were going to do something where it seemed like the kid was the Mandalorian, but he was the one perpetrating the killings. I thought he was going to be like with the droids. Because remember at some point when he's with Bill Burr and them, he's saying how like he had a past that he's not exactly proud of. And the Sons of Anarchy guy kind of hints at that. Mm-hmm. I thought that was going to be the big twist. Like he was actually killing these people, but it was what we expected.
And the actual Mandalorian is a Gungan after all, like Bill Burr said.
Yeah.
Yeah, that twist didn't come to fruition either, unfortunately.
Even though it didn't add a lot of new information, I did think it was cool to see stuff from the prequel trilogy, though. Again, I mean, I know we've seen it before, but like Disney hasn't embraced that side of it at all, and to see it in like live action form, again, I thought was really cool.
So that's supposed to be like the Clone Wars or something happening, or is that?
Well, the super was it like a super battle droid, Korey? I don't know if it has a different name, but it's like, isn't that from like the Clone Wars time?
Yeah, primarily, yeah. I'm not sure if the timelines exactly line up, but yeah, that's where we first see him in the films.
The battle droids as a whole are almost like a joke in the prequels because they're usually coming up against Jedi and saying really dumb things to the side. But like,
Roger.
To see them in this way, like just killing innocent people, I think that does add some depth to the whole saga here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, George Lucas even said in like the Phantom Menace behind the scenes, which is pretty famous now, mostly from like Plinkett's videos, but he's describing them to people and saying like, yeah, these things are nothing. They just get cut down. They're basically useless. Like, okay. But yeah, it is nice to see them in a light where they are threatening and doing something.
Yeah, that's a good point, Pep. We really have not seen droids for a real long time, like since those prequel movies. It's almost like they made a mistake there, making those droids, kind of taking them back for so many years, and then now we finally get to see them used in a actual effective way. They're not just getting cut down left and right. They're actually doing their job, but it's to cause kind of like a genocide throughout the galaxy. So they are kind of scary. It's kind of like the only action we see of them is in this flashback, but we should start off with the beginning of Chapter 8. A reprogrammed IG-11 ends up rescuing the child from those two scout troopers. He kind of has an awesome scene here. Korey, do you want to walk us through that, how he saves the baby?
Well, these fucking scout troopers are just like punching Baby Yoda in the face multiple times. Like, what the fuck, man? Like,
they're so hateable.
Oh man, it's Baby Yoda gets pretty abused throughout these like last 4 episodes. He's dropped multiple times and he gets punched in a bag like 2 or 3 times here in this one scene.
I know,
kind of hard to watch.
Poor little guy, man. He's just like squeaking in there and they're just punching him. They think it's funny.
It's not only the punches, it's the fact that he's captured and presumably going to be subjected to horrible torture until death. It's really awful.
More punches to come.
But he's got the charm. These 2 scout troopers are so curious to see what this Baby Yoda, this thing that they're carrying around, looks like. So they open up the bag and Baby Yoda ends up taking a chunk out of this guy's finger.
Hey.
And then he gets punched.
Punched again. God damn it.
Yeah. And then IG-11 shows up and he has kind of like some funny lines to say, and then turns into a badass and kind of blows these troopers away.
Okay, so there's like 3 Terminator references in this episode, and 2 of them happen here.
It's the most Taika Waititi thing ever, too, because isn't in Hunt for the Wilder People, doesn't he have a bunch of, you're like Sarah Connor, but before she got fit and stuff. Like, he just loves throwing in Terminator references. Sorry, Korey, you were going to say what they were, though.
Yes, that's good, though. It's a good tie-in. So IG-11 shows up, and the first thing that's like the Terminator is just how he takes these fucking guys out. It's like the first Terminator or Terminator 2 when he's trying to get his clothes. Like, he just walks up to him and, like, breaks the guy's wrist and then just, like, slams the other guy into the speeder. It's very Terminator-esque. But he also does say, actually, it might not be here, but it's somewhere in there that about Kuil that he's been terminated. So there's 2 of them.
Yeah, and this part doesn't even look all that CGI. It almost looks kind of like a practical effect, almost. I don't even know what they're doing here, but it looks different than just straight up CGI. I thought it looked cool as he's getting on the speeder bike and kind of riding away with Baby Yoda. But as that's happening, Mando and Kara and Grief Karga are still trapped inside this bar, and they're kind of just having like a Mexican standoff with this giant turret gun and Moff Gideon.
Excuse me, New Mexican standoff.
Yeah, a New Mexican standoff.
Right.
Josh, what is kind of like their last hope with this like grate in the back of the building that they're trying to get, trying to open up, and it's not exactly working?
Yeah, so Pat Garrett and the Moff Gideon,
Murphy boys,
and the storm. Man, Pappy is hating this so much, but the stormtroopers wheel out this. They call it like an E-web, and it is kind of like a Gatling gun, super powerful. They got it aimed right through the window, and you also know that they could just like torch the place. But for some reason that I don't know, Moff wants these guys alive, and almost in something that reminds me of the sweet, sweet Ninja Turtles. Mando starts looking for a sewer system.
Secret of the Ooze, you mean?
Yeah. So Mando's like behind the trash cars searching around, and he actually finds a grate, but they're not able to open it. So they're kind of just stuck. And Pappy might have believed like they're out of materials to be able to open this metal gate.
Yeah, they don't have a screwdriver or whatever they would
Flathead.
need to. Yeah.
They needed Phillips, but
My other tool belt.
They got it all but that. They try to blast it open, but it doesn't work. They have to like weld through it or whatever. They have to like cut the metal, and that's done by IG-11 when he shows up. Because like you said, when he pops Baby Yoda in his little like basket and he rides into town, we get kind of a big epic gunfight. And I don't know, like IG-11, he's like stronger now with his new programming than he seemed to be in episode 1, because he's just like really kicking ass out there. Like, it seems like he could almost take these guys out by himself.
Yeah, Pap, what does IG-11 kind of drifts and ghost rides his speeder bike into a bunch of stormtroopers and then kind of kicks everybody's ass? What else does he do here?
Well, yeah, he's just like sniping people as he's flying around on the speeder bike. And I guess, Josh, to your question earlier, did they not fire the big Gatling gun because they thought they still had Baby Yoda? Is that what happened?
There's a chance Baby Yoda was in there or something, but the stormtroopers that were up top, like, waiting for confirmation or something, I don't understand how that all plays into itself, I guess.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, the arrival of IG-11 like sort of breaks the Mexican standoff, and things are thrown into chaos. He's eventually able to open the grate, but not before Baby Yoda uses the Force to like freeze fire, like Neo freezes bullets in midair and reverse it. It was pretty cool.
It was epic. Yeah,
there's a stormtrooper with like a flamethrower gun or something who kind of tries to clear out the room, and Baby Yoda ends up using the Force in a really epic way. He's super tuckered out after that.
Is that a new Force ability? The ability to be like a firebender type thing?
I think it's more just like a really strong Force
telekinesis
push. Yeah.
If there is an Avatar character, it's Baby Yoda.
I would love that crossover.
When the world needed him most, he vanished.
But also at this time, Mando ends up getting pretty hurt. He, I don't know if it's suggested that he gets shot in the back of the head or something, or in the back of the neck, but
it happens outside when he gets the E-web.
Yeah, he gets shot in the back, I think, and he gets
Moff
pretty handicapped. Yeah, he's dragged back inside of the bar, which is now like burning down, and he says to leave him. He wants to fight a warrior's, or he wants to have a warrior's death. So he's ready to fight to the end and give them a chance to escape through the grate. But IG-11 is not going to let that happen. He does his best to heal him up, and we get a pretty cool scene of Mando taking his helmet off. What happens here, Josh? Why does he take his helmet off?
IG-11 has to take off his helmet if he's going to save this wound that's to his brainstem, I guess. IG-11 even makes some joke about, like, your center cortex is ruined or something like that, but it's interesting here. He does take off his helmet because they have this realization that IG-11 is not a living thing, so he won't violate the Mandalorian creed, I guess. And even though I guess I'm just thinking out loud right now, he could videotape it and then show it to another human, I guess.
Videotape it?
Yeah. IG-11 is just like,
eyes.
ignore that camera over there filming.
He always has a GoPro on. But he takes off his helmet and sprays Bacta spray into Mandalorian's kind of like ear hole area. And Pappy, you might remember Bacta from Luke being in the Bacta tank way back in Empire Strikes Back.
Oh yeah, way back from the Bacta tanks there, and in Star Wars Battlefront, you gotta find the little Bacta juices on the
Yeah.
field and drink
It's
them.
very common. It's like a
heal
common
up.
healing item in Star Wars games, like a back-to-pack, or like, yeah, it's it's often said.
It's and I never really understood the mechanics of it, but like apparently it cures his limp, and he's like feeling pretty good. In about 15 minutes, he's at full strength again.
He's running around.
What did you guys think of the face reveal?
Looked like Pedro. I mean,
Yeah. I'm glad they didn't like
The
do
Viper.
anything weird with his face or anything. It's just his face. It's just nothing crazy.
well, even
Still got a
further,
mustache.
further to that point, why? It doesn't really push anything along to show his face. It's kind of non-consequential, I guess.
I did predict that though. 2 episodes. Do you guys remember when I said they're gonna show his face at the end? And they did.
But it doesn't matter that he
That
didn't
was awesome.
like. There's no consequences, right? Because it was a droid, and they found the loophole.
But this is Mando's way of getting over his fear of droids, is him taking off his helmet in front of one, I guess. I don't know, because he's had a grudge against specifically this droid for the whole season as well. He says that a couple times throughout the
Yeah,
This
I mean,
episode and the
it's
previous
all
episode.
droids, but this one, because the very first episode, more so than others, probably.
Yeah, I think that's a really deep thought, actually, Mikey. I appreciate that.
Well, that's why I'm here. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see if like he teams up with a new droid next season or something, or he builds his own droid or something, because it seems like he's now over that fear of all of these battle droids, or at least droids working against him, I guess. But he really had a thing against them for the longest time, and now that one saved him, he seems to be over it. But after they go down into the grate, after he gets healed up, they're really just trying to find their way around. They're pretty much lost down in these sewers, and they end up running into the armorer, the Mando armorer, and she kind of hooks up Mando finally with his Sigget. Kyler, what's a Sigget?
It's a little
Sigget.
logo on your arm.
And what does he get?
He gets the
He gets-
Mudhorn, so he is now a clan of 2. It's him and Baby Yoda against the world, man. So in the third or second episode, I think it's the third one actually, she's going to give him a Sigget for the Mudhorn kill, but he doesn't get it because it was not an honorable kill. He didn't do it by himself. And this kind of harkens back to that, because he does get it because now Baby Yoda is essentially his foundling to look after. The armorer explains that you're to be this person's father and gives him a quest, which is probably going to be what season 2 is about. She said you got to reunite it with its own people, and she, kind of gives a little bit of history on the Jedi, because these people don't seem to be aware of what the Jedi are, and that they used to be enemies of the Mandalorians, and this baby is believed to be part of the Jedi.
Feels like they're kind of using the word Jedi wrong. And I don't mean that in a bad way, almost like in the vague sense of any Force user is like a Jedi or something.
Absolutely.
And I kind of appreciate that.
You would, right? I mean, I feel like these misinformed people would do that.
But also, as far as like this whole season goes and what we have seen on screen from The Mandalorian, I'm not sure if the Mudhorn victory is really scratching the top 10. Like, why is that his thing? He's done a lot of cool stuff.
You think you should have Bill Burr's face?
Now that's a Sigget.
A bald redhead.
That'd be
Old
so
Billy
awesome.
Ginger Sigget. So do you think... So, sorry,
Go ahead,
Corey, you
Pat.
touched on something there. Like, do you think that... Are we headed to actually finding the origins of the Yoda species? Like, is that kind of going to be, like, the conceit of the rest of the show going forward?
I don't know if that's something that they're ready to reveal or to go into. Like, that's, like, kind of the one thing that they've kept a mystery in Star Wars canon, like, forever.
Yeah.
I don't know if they'll do that, but I think we will see Jedi or former Jedi, maybe even a little bit of Obi-Wan in the next season. It has been suggested that... I'm sorry. No, this is after the Obi-Wan series. Someone was saying that they were going to tie this into the Obi-Wan series, but I forgot this is after, actually, so they can't do that.
Is there any chance like Adam Driver or Daisy Ridley could show up?
What's
Maybe
the
Kelly
timeline?
Marie Tan could
No,
show
I guess
up.
they'd be like babies, right?
Babies.
So they could tie it into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles too. They're babies.
I was just waiting for the armorer to make Baby Yoda armor. Just pop a big-eared helmet on his head and pat him on the butt and get him on his way to his other Yoda friends.
Yeah.
But I think that would be pretty wild to kind of find a planet full of other Yodas. I don't know how they would pull that off without it coming off as kind of goofy, or like a planet full of Muppets, I guess, is kind of what I'm thinking.
Muppet
I think the
babies.
whole conceit's probably wrong. Like, we've established that Yoda's of a species that ages differently and it just is different. This could be some sort of species that has like a reincarnation ability. Like, are they asexual? Do they lay eggs? Honestly, do the eggs hatch like a million years later? Who knows?
That's a good point. Yeah. They might go that route.
Trying to picture Yoda from the original trilogy, like pooping out an egg, but it's not coming out like easily. It's really
Yeah, I'm just
bearing
like
down to get it
picturing.
out.
Yeah, I'm just picturing them like growing off of a very old ancient tree or something and just falling to the ground like an acorn.
Oh, that's so
I don't
dope.
know.
They start out as like a nut.
We all do.
Oh, jeez.
Well, it seems like Moff Gideon is like either interested in all Yodas or like this specific one, because doesn't he say something like, "It means more to me than you'll ever know," or something like that?
So is this like Danny trying to find dragons' eggs and find baby dragons and use them
As a weapon.
Yeah.
Ooh.
The armor also gives Mando he finally gets a jetpack, but he's not exactly up to date on his training. So he doesn't use it for a while until like the very end of this episode. But after that, they're still making their way through the subway tunnels of this planet, and they end up finding a ferry on a lava stream. Pap, what happens here in this scene, and what kind of happens to IG-11 as well?
So they do some sort of like scanning technology, right? Mando does. And well, first of all, shout out to the droid whose one function it is to like push the raft down the lava stream with like a big old school stick. It seems like
That like
a motor.
R2 unit with arms.
I mean, sometimes it feels like they're making things more complicated than they need to be. But either way.
The guy on the river Styx just pushing the ferry along.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like some Greek thing across the river in Hades or whatever. But like they do a scan, and there's some like ambush waiting for them with a bunch of stormtroopers. And IG-11 does the calculations that it's basically they're gonna die and he's gonna be captured, and that objective overrides even the objective to protect Baby Yoda. So like a champ, IG-11, voiced by Taika Waititi, walks out in the middle of the lava river to where all the stormtroopers are, and then commits kamikaze and blows up and kills them all.
And there's kind of like, actually, now that I think about it, a two-part Terminator reference in that. The first being the self-sacrifice to the lava, much like T2, right? When Arnold goes down into the molten pit.
Gives a thumbs up.
Yeah, IG-11 goes out with a thumbs up, too. And also the bomb in the chest is like a Terminator 3 thing, which is, I mean, also a Terminator Dark Fate thing, but it first came out in Terminator 3, where like, okay, well, I have this like thing in my chest that'll blow the fuck up. Anyway.
Yeah,
those are my Terminator references.
I think that's true, and also just planting and payoff here. That was one of the big points of humor in episode 1, that IG-11 is continually threatening suicide, basically, and Mando has to talk him out of it, and so that ends up being kind of what saves him. Pappy, did you find any problem with stormtroopers maybe not opening fire immediately on him as he exits the cave, though? It's kind of weird.
Not really. And it's kind of one of those things where you wonder what direction they're going to go with it. And even from that like opening first scene that they show that like the stormtroopers suck at aiming. Like one guy on the speeder bike can't even hit a can like a few feet away. He gets really pissed about it. But like it feels like they're just not the brightest soldiers to begin with. Easily outsmarted. So it works for me on that sense.
So you just have to be like barely above average human being to become like the Moff of a big group of stormtroopers like this.
What is a Moff? I don't even know what that even means.
They're like little, they like fly around and they go to light bulbs, like they're attracted to light.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
They were very popular in the meme community for a while.
And if they have these moth balls, they should have just had a bunch of those to keep them away.
Yeah.
They would have been totally fine.
No, like a Moff is like, I don't know, it's like generals. Like there's Grand Moff Tarkin in the original Star Wars: A New Hope. It's just like a word they use for like some kind of general.
I don't think we touched on that too. The way he goes out, I really appreciated, because the group didn't like outsmart him or get away. Mandalorian just had to do like some sweet stunts, and it was really cool seeing him jetpack up there and attach onto his ship and like climb and try to like put the charges on there. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool move. Again, it's the CGI, the visual effects, I mean, they look insane for a TV show. And we get to see inside of Moff Gideon's TIE fighter. It looks awesome. And he's really kind of very angry when he gets outsmarted by Mando here and his ship is taken down. And then, of course, Mando doesn't go and double tap Moff Gideon after he crashes his TIE fighter.
Number
so
two.
He's alive and well. He's alive and well, and that's kind of just the setup to Season 2 as Moff Gideon exits his TIE fighter and kind of shows off that Darksaber, which is like a super awesome teaser for next season, I thought, at least.
There's a lot of references here. I see Qui-Gon Jinn using his lightsaber to like get through the bay doors in Phantom Menace. I see, like, Rey handing the lightsaber to Luke at the end of Force Awakens, too, here. Kind of the way he's framed on the top of that fighter, and they kind of pan away from him. He's pretty looming.
I think they did a good job at making, like, a single TIE fighter seem threatening to a group. Because normally they're just kind of, like, fodder in space, and, yeah, they might take down, like, an unnamed rebel fighter. But it actually seemed like, okay, this is pretty, like, scary. A guy in a TIE fighter is going to fuck us up. It's kind of like what they did with the AT-ST in a few episodes earlier.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah, except this one didn't have red eyes.
Yeah. I think the reduced stakes of like the whole season as a whole, like the whole arc, just everything scaled way back. I mean, we just watched Rise of the Skywalker. There was literally 1,000 Imperial starship fleet, or in the starship
1,000
fleet or
Death
whatever,
Stars.
with all planet. Yeah, 1,000 Death Stars. And now we're reduced to one single TIE fighter. It's kind of awesome to see that, like, disparity. It's so much more interesting when it's just like this one TIE fighter, because it's like the only thing you have to focus on. That's where all the action is. At least to me, it's more interesting that way instead of 1,000 things flying
And
around.
before
on screen.
Mando takes it
I don't know
out,
what you
Grief
guys think.
Karga's like, he's like panicking and he's telling Baby Yoda, do the magic hand thing. It's pretty funny.
That's no moon. It's 1,000 Imperial Death Stars.
Do you guys have anything else? There's really just Karga and
Cara Dune?
Dune. Yeah, Cara Dune stay behind, and I don't know if it's implied that Cara is going to turn into a bounty hunter, but Karga really wants that to happen because she's a really good fighter and she saved him a couple times these last 2 episodes. So it's kind of like the beginning of hopefully all these characters come back. I'm sure they will, and be a little more friendly next season. It was kind of everybody getting together this season under uncertain circumstances surrounding this child, and then they all kind of band together when they realize that love is the real friendship
Yes,
we
it
made along
is.
the way.
As
We've
Carl
all learned
Weathers,
some lessons.
as Carl Weathers walks with Kara back to town, I was thinking, like, are you crazy? Like, yeah, they killed these stormtroopers, but more are going to come. But then I remembered, Corey, this is after the fall of the Empire, so there's not just, like, infinite supplies for all these stormtroopers, right? That's pretty much it.
I mean, that's all they had there. He might have more people following him, or might be able to hire more people. I think that's why these stormtroopers are following these guys. Like, he's just a guy that like hired some, fallen troopers that used to work for the Empire, or maybe even just random people, and had him put these trooper outfits on. But yeah, I don't know. He'll get some more muscle for sure.
I know they suck, but they don't seem that ragtag. They still had executions for not following orders and stuff. Like, they're still in battalions to some extent. I feel like there's some organizational structure here.
Are we supposed to assume that Moff Gideon is like the guy in charge of the Empire at this point right now, or is there a guy that we have not seen
Palpatine.
kind of running the...
Yeah.
bro. Well, yeah, that would be...
I guess the
Palpatine's out
Sensei
there.
is kind of more like a rogue general, right? Like he's just kind of... Maybe these guys did report to him, but after the fall of the Empire, now he's just out here doing his own thing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I had a question for you guys, a little bit off topic, but like this came out in a weekly fashion, whereas like Netflix's premiere show, Stranger Things, was like an all-in-one dump. And I feel like this was way more talked about and grabbed more of the pop culture like headlight for a longer time. I guess, like, Josh, what do you prefer, the all-in-one dump or sort of the weekly releases like Game of Thrones or Mando?
That's interesting and a meta conversation for us because we're trying right now to figure out when we're going to release our Lord of the Rings Fellowship episodes. So it's like, do the fans want it as a whole dump, or do you want it teased out? And I think for instant gratification as a fan, like, yeah, you want it all at one time, but to really capture the imagination and let people kind of build up theories and gain some hype around each individual episode instead of just one lump season, I think we really saw some benefits. That's a really good point, Pappy.
I think it's only helped this show too as well. I mean, like, there's been some pretty harsh backlash for Skywalker, and every week this show is just absolutely crushing it on social media. There's memes every single week, just because nobody's binge watching it all in the first day. They've spread out content, so there's just new stuff to
The
see every week.
contrarians are starting to show up, though. So you will start seeing that.
Contreras, the letterbox keyboard warriors.
The shitheads are arriving and bashing it. I've been seeing it here and there. Yeah, that's the way it goes for anything, I guess.
We've already talked about in our group thread. That's Russian trolls, we're pretty sure. So,
yeah, they're Russian. Fucking Russians.
It's an entire fleet of Russian bots, and then it's me and Pap that are leading the charge on hate for Rise of Skywalker. I don't know if you guys have any other things you want to say or theories or anything, but that's the end of season 1 of Mando. You guys got anything else?
I think everyone already knows, but I'm just so happy with this episode that it got me some really meaty Young Gun references, and like that really meant a lot deep down.
Same here, man.
Thanks. Fist bump.
No. Well, I'm excited to see those Young Guns Baby Yoda reference memes on your Instagram there, Kylo Ren memes. But as far as next season goes, I'm really excited to see what they have in store. We've already had some pretty big payoffs this season already, and I'm just ready to really see Baby Yoda's full power next season. What levels of cuteness he can really achieve next season. Maybe he goes through a little growth spurt. Maybe he gets a little mustache.
A little Fu Manchu.
I don't know. Maybe he kind of figures out his sexuality. Just kind of grows up. Kind of
smokes his first cigarette.
Kind of figures himself out.
His earbuds all the time. He's super moody and just pissed off.
Grows his hair out.
You guys think? I thought he might say a word in this first season. Maybe they're still holding off on his speech for later.
If his first word isn't dad, then what's the point?
Mando. Din.
His first words are, "It's like poetry. It rhymes."
No, he
Like
has to
poetry
say.
it is.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Well, if that's all you guys have to say, we'll toss it over to Spoiler Man now. And Spoiler Man, why don't you take it away?
You gonna do yes or no's?
Oh, I guess we can for the whole season. And well, we'll do these 2 episodes, and then I guess we kind of already know for the full season. Kylo, why don't you start?
Okay. Well, just like every other episode of The Mandalorian, I'm gonna give both of these episodes a yes. I didn't love the ending as far as my expectations were there was going to be some kind of twist, but it did satisfy me like overall. I'm not saying like that took a lot away from me, but I did think there was going to be a twist in there, so it's not as hard a yes as I would have given it otherwise, but I did like it a lot. I like the world building in this show as far as like the small scale stuff. Like we get to know these like small time characters that aren't big influences in the galaxy. They're just kind of doing their own thing. This guy's got an abandoned kid and he's off trying to protect it. It's very nice to see. It's a good looking show. I really love it. It's a yes for me.
Yeah, I'll give both of these episodes a hard yes and a yes for the series overall. Part of me wasn't really pumped when I saw the lightsaber light up at the end, but hearing Korey kind of explain more of its origins, I think it's actually going to be a cool direction for the show, and excited to see that. But yeah, I only gave one episode of the whole series a no, and even that was just like a soft no. It's really, really good, solid TV, and I felt like, especially watching this like episode 8, like the last episode, that it's like, yeah, this is the Star Wars content I've been waiting for, and for me, it's probably like the best Star Wars thing since Empire. So, in that sense, it's a definite hard yes for me.
Josh?
I think it's, well, first of all, it's a yes for both episodes and the season. Can't wait to see where it goes. Kind of devastated we have to wait till next fall to see more, but we'll survive, and I'm sure there'll be more Star Wars things between then and now as well. But yeah, my only thing that I'd like to re-say is that I just think the writing really shone throughout this, and it looks good, and the Mando's tough, and the acting is solid, and Baby Yoda is so cute. But the fact that they were really able to bookend this in a satisfactory way, and like the droid arc kind of came to conclusion, and the way they parsed out information as the series went along, I just thought it was really well done. Taika Waititi with the last episode is just like kind of a cool bow on the top of the whole thing, so huge yes.
Yeah, both episodes I'll give a yes. I liked chapter 8 a little more than chapter 7, but like I said, throughout this whole season, this show looks amazing. The budget is insane for it, and it shows in every episode. And the writing is great, and like Pep said, I think this is kind of the best Star Wars content we have right now, at least that's coming out. I think it's really good storytelling, and it's exciting to have these like smaller, lower stakes stories being told that still have like a pretty big effect on the universe as a whole, but just not nearly the crazy, over the top kind of consequences that like Jedi are bringing into the Star Wars universe. But yeah, I'm excited to see where next season goes, and man, I can't wait for Mando to kill Moff Gideon and take that Darksaber. I cannot wait to see what he does with that thing.
Dang.
Well, now that Korey said it's a Mandalorian artifact, it's like, well, he already got the signet, he got the jetpack, he got the awesome armor. Now he's got to get that saber, man. He's
I like where you're going with that.
Isn't there a line or something that Werner Herzog says in the first episode that's like, it's nice to see this back in the hands of where it belongs, or the natural order is restored, or something like that?
Yeah, the Beskar.
Yeah, so maybe that's kind of part of what this whole arc is. This whole series will be him gathering what's rightfully the Mandalorians, even though he's himself adopted.
Yep, I'm excited. We got a year to wait, but I mean, Kylo or Korey, do you know what the next Star Wars show coming out is, or is that still pretty much under
I know
wraps?
That this is confirmed for season 2 that's going to be released around fall of 2020 of next year. So I think this might be it, but maybe there's something that I don't know about in the works as well.
Yeah, it seems interesting the way they kind of the contents calendar that they've kind of set up. I really hope it doesn't end up biting them in the ass, because for me personally, I don't see too much stuff on Disney Plus that makes me want to keep it around until Mando starts back up. I know, it's like I watched
a few seasons of Boy Meets World, and now I'm like over it. I'm like, all right.
We're not having any Obi-Wan in between then and now. I thought they'd already started shooting and such.
I know that it's supposed to be coming. I didn't know that it was going to be before this. If so, that would be awesome.
Well, I'm just thinking that I don't think they've started shooting for season 2 of Mando, have they?
No, probably not.
So if they're already shooting for Obi-Wan, maybe that bodes well for a release date, but I have no idea.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But we'll just have to wait and see. That was our Mando season walkthrough. We've gone through every episode. If you guys want to listen to those again, you can find them on the podcast feed. Spoiler Man, why don't you take us out? Take it away, Spoilers Man.
Spoiler Man.
Spoilers Man.
Palpatine.
Harper time.
Spoiler Man here. Our email is podcastspoilers@gmail.com. Twitter is @spoilers_pod. Our Instagram is podcast spoilers. It's lit. Josh Hensley from the Rutabaga wrote our theme song.